I took to the streets of Wellington, Cuba Street, and I asked this question. Do you reckon that New Zealand should legalise ecstasy?
Yes.
No.
Sort of.
You sound like you've had a few raves in your time.
No, I do not.
Yes?
Maybe, here and there.
Maybe for health purposes?
I'm not qualified to make a decision. I haven't tried it.
No, I think it should be legal for all drugs.
I think it has a lot of negative effects, both physically and mentally.
People own their own bodies and should have a right to put anything that they want into them.
So I think it's got to be looked at.
I've seen a little bit of research and I'll say a little bit of proof on MDMA with post-traumatic stress disorder in ex-soldiers, and it proven pretty good.
What if we found that it was less harmful than other drugs in society, like tobacco or alcohol? Would that sort of change your mind a bit? Or?
Yeah, that would influence me with it, but I'd like to substitute one for the other. I'd say if that's more harmful, get rid of that and we'll replace it with that.
I stick with alcohol. I wouldn't give that one away too readily.
It kind of makes you hug each other, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Yeah. Oh, yes, yeah.
Do you want to embarrass him?
That's right. He was a good old Manchester kid there, north of England. Hey, Fletcher, you seem like a bit of a rave kid from days gone by. Have you tried ecstasy?
No, I have definitely not.
What about you, Megan?
Never inhaled it.
Oh, well, you know, okay. Never inhaled ecstasy, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Christchurch.
Dunedin, Wallace, Dunedin.
Dunedin, done it.
The drum and bass scene. Good to have you on the show. Yeah, good to have you on the show. Hamilton West scene, how was it for you?
Oh, it's a great scene.
Yeah, I bet it is.
But I was with Megan when she wasn't inhaling.
Oh, okay, right. All right, hey, let's go to Damien.
Yeah, all right. Well, just before the show, what we did was we got two tables. Gave them a bunch of pills each. Now, one table we gave a placebo to. This is this table here. They had a placebo pill. You feeling all right?
I'm feeling fine.
Cool. This table here we gave a small but moderate dose of MDMA to. How are you guys going?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, how about you?
We needed it at our age.
You need it at your age? Absolutely. Are you enjoying it, sir?
Still trying to figure out how to use it.
I'm still trying to figure out how to use it. We also have an expert here who's been monitoring their responses, Dr. Paul Quigley, the man who basically started this whole, sort of discussion in the media in the last week. Welcome.
Thank you, Damien. Thank you.
Regular guest on the show. Ecstasy, is it a good thing?
Potentially. MDMA, so that's what people have to realise. We're not talking about the crap street pills we've got out there at the moment, which are causing harm. We're getting patients into the emergency departments throughout New Zealand, so Auckland, Christchurch, Wellington, that are basically in a thing called toxic delirium, where you have to sedate them. You hold them down with police officers and sedate them, and so on. That's because there's just random stuff out there.
The kids don't even call that ecstasy anymore. Do they call it pills? They just, because God knows what's in it, it's just a pill. I took a pill.
Yeah, it's just a pill. In fact, the name E has really been diluted so much now that it's dangerous to use, because the active substance that is an original E is MDMA, and that was actually a prescription medicine. It was available for marriage counselling and psychotherapy and so on.
I heard Vietnam veterans, when they came back and they were failing to connect with their partners, they tested MDMA on them. Is that true?
Yes, it's absolutely true, and that's why, in fact, the United States is going through a very difficult process at the moment, because they may have to legislate to make it a prescription medicine because they're using it for post-traumatic stress disorder. And so it's going to have to come off being a Schedule 1 drug to being available as a Schedule 3 for prescription.
Now, the downside, I mean, nothing is, there's nothing that has obviously alcohol, we know what the downside of alcohol is. Is there a downside? Is it a totally harm-free drug, ecstasy?
No, of course it's not. In fact, there's no such thing as a harm-free drug. But what we've got to do is we've got to think outside the box. It's like we were talking about social development. We've got to come up with something new. We've got dangerous drugs on the street. We've got to reduce the harm that's coming from it. We've got to consider an alternative potentially for alcohol as well, because that causes immense social and health harm.
Just to put this in perspective, you're an emergency department doctor. You see people coming in Friday, Saturday night. Give me percentage-wise, how many are alcohol-related, how many are drug-related?
We get roughly 100 alcohol-related presentations for one recreational drug presentation. And I'm not talking about combinations here. These are just pure out-and-out alcohol presentations, and we get one recreational drug coming in. So, the harm figures are already there. And The thing.
Can I just say, how come you didn't lose your job this week? Calling for, I mean, you didn't call. You were interviewed for a magazine article from the Drug Foundation. How come? What's the the feedback been like?
The feedback's been incredibly positive. There is a large, especially amongst the medical community, there is some truth behind the fact that we need a safer alternative. MDMA is actually not going to be the one in New Zealand. It's already scheduled as a B1 under the United Nations Amphetamine Act, and so that actually precludes it. Like Minister Dunn is very aware, and Peter Dunn really wants to work the Psychoactive Substance Act. He wants something to come through, wants something to actually get through the trials and see what happens. But in the end, MDMA is not going to be it, because there's other rules involved that stops that from happening.
Okay, we're going to go back to Wallace now. If Wallace was making MDMA, would his power bill be as high as his growing?
Higher, much higher.
There you go, Wallace. It's not an alternative for you, but back to the panel.
Maybe that's the issue. Maybe that's the issue. I want to go to you, Fletcher, New Zealand first. What do you think? Do you think that this issue is just too hot a political potato for MPs to touch?
Look, what I'm willing to admit...
And be honest here.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to admit that if I ever need marriage counselling, I'm willing to give it a go.
I mean, someone tweet that out. Fantastic. You heard it here first. All right. Do you think that we should be making criminals of recreational drug users? That's the thing. You've heard the stats there.
Yeah, so what you're hearing is the usage rates, and I think you're talking about a criminalised drug that's very hard to get access to. And what was upsetting to hear was the kind of, we're calling it pills now. That's what we need to combat, the culture. And that's actually the issue we need to deal with, not legalising a substance which we know is toxic, can have immediate side effects in the here and now, and does actually build up toxicity over time.
100 cases of alcohol present, Megan, and 1 case for recreational drug use. Do you think we need to be rethinking this in a whole new revolutionary way?
Well, I think we need to not do what the Irish Parliament did. So Ireland is one of the few countries that has made this class of drugs legal by mistake. For 24 hours. They passed a piece of legislation that inadvertently decriminalised these drugs and had to go back the next day and fix it up. Well, they fixed it up and they criminalised them again. But what I look to is the experience we've seen in the last Parliament, where we put through the legislation that liberalised the law around party drugs. And we had to go back and change that. What I want to see us do is look at this as a whole. We've still got stuff from the Law Commission's report on alcohol that we haven't looked at, and we're hearing over here that there's still a lot of problems with alcohol. We need to look at this as a whole package, not ad hoc.
I want to go to Tim. I mean, here we're talking about a drug that it makes you dance to rave music and it makes you hug people.
It could be dangerous, Tim. It could be dangerous.
It is a Class B1 restricted drug under the Misuse of Drugs Act, and therefore any change to this classification would have to involve legislative change, which, as Megan has said, look at the strife we had at the legal
A recent report says MDMA is 17th out of 20 on a list of harmful drugs. Alcohol is number 1. Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it?
Well, we certainly have problems with alcohol abuse, but I would argue that the vast majority of people can use alcohol recreationally and socially. I'm not so sure that the evidence is there for drug use.
I just want a couple of responses just from the audience on this one. It's a big one, this one.
Yeah, well, can we get a quick show of hands? Given that the marijuana people are here, they might be, I don't know, competition, but who thinks ecstasy should be legalised? Okay, and those opposed? Oh, yep, those who don't really care? Good, nice, very well. Wallet?